Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. If this is your first time checking out a video, please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. Without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of The Herd with Colin Cowherd, talking about who's going to be the face of the NBA after LeBron. Now, this has been a conversation that has been, being talked about on First Take, on First Things First. And I haven't, heard Colin address this yet. And I've addressed it previously. I think can kind of go a few different ways. And I think it all depends on how we want to define the face of the league. And, what does one need to be the face of the league? Do you need to win a championship? Do you not? So I'm really curious to see how Colin unpacks this one. So let's see what he has to say, and then we can unpack it from there.
I saw this story this morning. Brian Windhorst, know him, trust him, said LeBron is going to sign a deal for the Lakers in the offseason. And it's going to be 9 figures. And again, I'm $60 million a year. LeBron's still a top 5 player in the league on any given night. He's the second, third best player in the league. But deep down, the NBA would love to find their Patrick Mahomes. Here you had Peyton Manning and Brady dominating the league. And then a Midwest-based franchise, Kansas City, lands Mahomes. He's fun. He's lively, he's amazing, he's on 10 commercials, and he totally leans into being the face of the NFL, and he is, and he's a great face. He's great. The NFL's always searching for the face of the league because they've always got one. But the NBA doesn't. They've had 4 since the 80s, where a guy was the best player and had the charisma to also be the face of the league. Bird didn't have that charisma. Either did Duncan. Kareem, for a time, was the best player. Pushed back. Very private individual. Only been 4 since the 80s. Magic, MJ, Shaq, and LeBron. The best players for a stretch and leaned into it. Steph was never the best player, though I love him. Kobe, let's be honest, he was MJ light, and Shaq was a much, much bigger star in Los Angeles. Shaq's sheer size and personality overwhelmed Kobe. Jokic now is the best player in the league. He didn't even want to go to the Nuggets championship parade last year. He wanted to go home. Overwhelmingly, the best players are international. They do not seek the spotlight. Our best domestic player, in my opinion, in his prime is Jason Tatum, and he's understated. But the NBA ratings are down severely over the last 10 to 15 years. You can say it's politics. I don't buy that. NBA's always been somewhat political.
It's not politics.
I think it's they don't have a face for the league. When Michael Jordan retired, they didn't have one. They lost 50% of their ratings.
How can it be that they don't have a face of the league when we know LeBron James is the face of the league for the last 15 years? If the ratings have been going down for the last 15 years and LeBron James is the face of the league, then how does that make sense?
It had nothing to do with politics. They just didn't have a guy ready that had Michael Jordan's class, his look, his style, and his talent. But when the NBA does have a face of the league, the ratings spike. But LeBron sucks so much oxygen out of the room because he's a great businessman and is not going to give up face of the league easily. And there doesn't appear to be a Mahomes on the horizon. My guess is over the next 5 years, the 2 best players in the league will be Jokic and Wemby. And international players, you ever get in a plane and they ask you some survey, is this personal or business travel? International players like Wemby and Jokic are all business. It is all basketball. They come into this country, they want to get in their game, their practice, their sleep. They hang with sometimes cousins, friends, family from their country. It is all business. They're not distracted. They like to stay away from the spotlight. They don't seek it. I think LeBron, Windhorst saying, could play another 5 to 6 years. And it's going to take an incredibly special player to come in like a Patrick Mahomes and seize it. Brady and Manning were businessmen. They carried that face of the league thing as long as they could. Totally appropriate. I totally get it. I would have done the same thing. It took Mahomes to come in and grab it and seize it. And right now, I don't buy its politics. It wasn't politics when the NBA lost 50% of its audience post MJ, but MJ was so cool and good looking and stylish and dominant and relentless. And he also loved being the face of the league and all that came with it. The glamour, the fame, the money, the net worth. The NBA, they see this story on LeBron. They're happy for him. Adam Silver communicates with LeBron in his camp regularly. But deep down, I think they're looking for their Mahomes. And the league now is so internationally viable, I don't see one on the horizon.
So, okay, this is an interesting, he took it in an interesting direction that I was not necessarily anticipating. Now, we know the ratings have been going down. We know the NBA has been struggling in that regard. I think it's for a handful of reasons and not just one. And I don't just blame LeBron or the rules or this or that. It's because, especially back in the 80s and 90s, right, there is less to do, less to watch. Okay? So watching the games and having that happen regularly made more sense, because you could either watch a brand new, never before seen basketball game, right? You know, a live game, or you could watch a rerun of Cheers or Seinfeld or Friends or whatever for the 10,000th time, right? An episode that you've seen a million times, okay? That's part of it. Then also, as SportsCenter started to get really popular, it was kind of like basketball became just more about the highlights, right? Like top 10 and all that type of stuff. It was more just about the dunks and the blocks and the crossovers and a buzzer beater, a big shot. That's what basketball became. And so now a whole new generation of fans, that's how they're consuming basketball. They're not actually watching the full 2+ hour game. It's, well, let me just see the dunks, right? Like when you're selling someone on a sport and you're like, look at these dunks, look at this, then that's all they care about. Football, since it's only once a week, can thrive on both aspects. On the highlights, the big tackles, right? The big sacks, the big interception, pick six. But it's also only once a week, right? It's become this religious type of thing where it's Sundays, we are watching football. And so it's different. Not to mention, when it's you only have access to so many football games on any given Sunday, where basketball, you can pretty much have access to watch a game, especially now in modern times, Monday, Tuesday. There's just always a game that you watch. You don't even need the special package, right? Like you don't need the special NBA package or whatever. Like you can always have access to a game, especially if you're even remotely tech savvy and know how to go online, right? So it's not a difficult thing to achieve. So all of that gets diluted. And I think basketball also, again, it's the clips and the highlights that also get shared so aggressively on social media, whether it be Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. It was kind of like the evolution of SportsCenter, because I don't think people are really, I don't know, does SportsCenter even exist anymore? I mean, like, who, if it does, who even watches it? And so I think that was a big part of what brought the NBA down as well. Not to mention the product itself is just not that enjoyable. I love the NBA. I love basketball. Love, 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 love. Okay? Absolutely. But it can be so brutal to watch. I mean, again, when you're watching the 20th game of the season, it just doesn't matter. I know it doesn't matter. Okay? Steph Curry goes 0 for 10, and, the Warriors get blown out by 100 points. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. LeBron James beats Steph Curry in a big back and forth, insane game where they both put up 140 points, 141 to 140. That will probably, I mapped out a pretty exciting scenario, but in game 20 of the season, it's like, that was cool, but like, doesn't really matter. It's not a statement. You got a whole season. You got another 60+ games to go. We'll see again what happens. Like, it just doesn't matter. You also play these teams multiple times too. That's also part of the problem. You're playing a lot of these teams multiple times, and so it's like, if you do it one game, it's like, okay, whatever. It's just not that. It's just not as special. Not to mention, the free throws are out of control. Out of control, and the NBA allowed it to go on for too long. They started to slowly change it up in terms of drawing some of these fouls, and how the ball handler can only lean in so much, and all that types of things. But they let it go on for too long, to the point where it was unbearable. Watching James Harden play basketball, who's actually at the time was a great player, exciting player, but watching him just draw these fouls and go to the line 30 freaking times a game is just brutal. It's brutal. And all the timeouts are brutal. There's too many timeouts. There's too many stoppage. The take fouls that they finally did away with, but it still happens to a degree. Because now even when they do a take foul, and they're like, well, was it a take foul? Was it a clear path violation? I don't know. Let's stop and pause for now 5 minutes to figure it out. It's just brutal. There's too much stopping. And again, it's not football. Football can get away with it for very specific reasons. It wouldn't be as brutal if there was one basketball game a week. Then maybe the stoppage wouldn't be as big of a deal. But when you're going to watch a basketball game, you want to watch this back and forth. But every single time a basketball game starts to get exciting, every single time, blow the whistle, timeout. And it's just like, you go on an 8-0 run, and it's like, oh my God, they got him on the ropes. This is crazy. Oh my God, Steph just knocked down 3 threes in a row on back-to-back possessions. This is crazy. Oh, timeout. Okay, great. A commercial for, alcohol, and a commercial for car insurance. And, oh, is that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid on a new commercial? That's cool. Oh, is Chris Paul is he not in those commercials anymore? Oh, okay. And then, finally, we're back. And they inbound the ball, and a ball and a whistle and a foul. 2 shots. And it just, you just get, you're up, and then you're down. You're up, you're down. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Watching Giannis Antetokounmpo take 45 seconds to shoot 1 free throw is brutal. It's just brutal. It's not fun to watch. That's what made a team like the Golden State Warriors so fun. That's why people loved them and gravitated towards them, because just watching them, the eye test, I don't care about anything that you have to say outside of the stats or the wins or this, it was just exciting basketball. Any fan who wasn't just against the Warriors because they were beating their team, if you just watch the Warriors play, you could be like, this is exciting. I could show it to my mom, my dad, and be like, I know you guys aren't big fans, but like, is this not insanely exciting? And my dad would be like, this is so much more enjoyable to watch than any other Sixers game. That the basketball needs more of that. Football, as exciting and as amazing as Patrick Mahomes is, the league is not dependent on just Patrick Mahomes being magical and doing all those things, because you have Josh Allen doing exciting things. You have Joe Burrow doing fun and exciting things. You have CJ Stroud. You have all these teams and players doing fun, exciting things. Not to mention, every play is like, oh, come on, let's go. Especially once you get into like the 6th, 7th week of the season, everything's starting to form late now, and you're like, oh man, Cowboys are only a couple games back. If the Eagles lose this week and then the Cowboys win, it's like, you start dancing with all these hypotheticals. Basketball has none of that. Because again, even if, say, a Joel Embiid puts up 70 points, that's amazing, that's exciting, that's awesome. But like, it doesn't matter. Like, it didn't actually move the Sixers a step up to now winning the championship or getting into the playoffs or doing any of those things. The Miami Dolphins putting up, what did they end up putting up? Like 70 points. I forget what the final number ended up being. All their points, that was amazing. That was historical. And theoretically, it was like moving them up to be like, we are here. You have to now go through us. And what was exciting was that ended up not even being the case, right? Like, that's why it was so much more unpredictable. So to me, it's not a matter that the NBA is just lacking a face of the league. That's not the problem. It's just not. Because if LeBron James is amazing and great as everyone says he is, and he's the face of the league, well then, why is that not enough to carry it? Because it's just not. Not to mention, for years, as much as I love the Warriors, which I'm a huge fan of the Warriors and a huge fan of Steph, it is not interesting to just know automatically it's going to be Golden State versus the Cavs. I mean, you just knew it. Everyone knew it. It was guaranteed. Oh, it's going to be them. It's not that interesting. It's just it's just not that exciting. And that's why for the last season for the NFL, I was like rooting for the Chiefs not to make it, and the 49ers, honestly, just from a fan perspective, because like I want new blood, I want interesting new storylines. I want to see Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. It would be amazing. Detroit versus Baltimore or something. That's awesome. Two brand new teams in the Super Bowl. That's crazy. That's so much more exciting than here's a rematch between Reed versus Shanahan. Brock Purdy made it exciting because he was obviously, if he won, and obviously the Chiefs are still a fun and exciting team, and I like the Chiefs a lot. But again, it's just I just like new stories, new timelines. But I keep saying timelines, new storylines, and that's what makes it more interesting. The NBA does not have that. They just don't. Not to mention the big players that get drafted in the NBA take a while to bake. It takes them years to bake to actually become legit. Okay? And when you have these misses, or not, I don't want to say misses, just unfortunate luck or unfortunate circumstances, like John Morant with his off the court stuff and then injuries, as well as Zion and just with his injuries, Embiid with his injuries, Wembanyama, like it's gonna take him years to really be like that dude. And even so, his game, and I think Wembanyama can become the face of the league and can be great and can win, but his game to the casual fan, again, you big NBA fans, I get it. You're gonna love it and you're gonna enjoy it, and I'm all for it. Me too. But you have to think when the ratings are high, it's because it's beyond just a casual fan. The reason why the NFL is so successful is because you get the diehards and the casuals and the people who barely care, but they're like, yeah, I'll watch it. And the NBA doesn't have that. And so Wembanyama's game, I don't know how well it translates just because of the way his body is. It's just different. It's aesthetically different to look at. And when something is aesthetically different to look at, it can go one of two ways. It could be like, I can't look away, or it could be like, this just feels kind of weird to watch, Watching Chet versus Wembanyama go against each other, you're like watching these like two stick figures going up against it. It feels weird. I mean, it just does. And again, I'm a basketball fan, so I can enjoy it and I can love it. I'm looking at it through the casual fan's eyes. It's just like, I don't know what I'm looking at. When a casual fan sees a Steph Curry, a LeBron James, like they know what they're looking at. They can see, right? They either look at Steph and say, oh my God, how is he succeeding? He's so small. Look at those threes. Or they look at LeBron James and say, that dude is jacked. Shaquille O'Neal was a monster. Wembanyama's really tall, right? He's really tall and skinny looking. So it's like, it's not as like, it's a different level of, being impressed. There's all levels and degrees to this. And again, I'm not hating on Wembanyama. I'm really not. I think Wembanyama can and will be great in the NBA, and I enjoy watching him. Like I said, to be very clear, I'm trying to speak through the eyes of the casuals, and you need the casuals. You can't rely on just the diehards. Don't believe me? Look at Major League Baseball, okay? No casual fans watch those games, and it's just awful, okay? Awful. My mom watches all the playoffs. The Phillies were in the playoffs, made a great runs the last 2 seasons, and she watched all the playoffs, had no desire to watch any regular season games, okay? My mom, on the other hand, gets all excited, watches football. Next season comes around, opening day, she's like, let's go. Week 1, let's go. Can't wait. Who are the Eagles playing? Oh, they're playing the whoever's. She's ready to go. That's the difference. Same thing with basketball. Mom was all into it, watching all the playoffs. Let's go, let's go, let's go. No desire to watch the regular season. She wasn't saying, oh, the Sixers are playing now? This is the first game of the season. Who are they playing? She has no idea, doesn't care. That's the difference. And you have to get the moms of the world. You have to get those people. That's what builds the league. That's what builds the energy. That's what builds everything. And it's not a face of the league. My mom is not watching football because of Patrick Mahomes. She's just not. So the NBA needs to change, or it will die like Major League Baseball. We have a sport right in front of us that we could see what happens. It was one of the most thriving sports, America's pastime, sold out crowds. Everyone was glued to the TVs. The World Series was the most iconic thing ever. The Yankees, the most iconic organization ever. Now it's none of those things, okay? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And the NBA could honestly, truly be that way. Especially where if the star of your league is a Jokic. because then the only people that really care are going to maybe be the diehards that can appreciate his game for what it is, and the Denver Nuggets fans. That's just the way it goes. But those are my thoughts. I would truly, truly love to hear your thoughts on this one. This took a turn in a way that I was not expecting. So please let me know your comments in the comments below. I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, please let me know. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. Thank you so much, and see you next time.